So welcome to TechnoDadLife, where we build, learn, and create as a community. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about plugins. And so basically plugins that I use, and then also the future of plugins in Openmediavault, so especially Openmediavault 5, which is going to be coming out later this year. So what's going to be happening is as they move to Openmediavault 5, not all plugins are going to continue. So basically what I would suggest is planning ahead for that, and we'll be talking about that a little bit in this video. And as always, if you like this video, make sure you like, and if you haven't already, subscribe, and here we go now. And a special thank you to all my patrons who, without your support, this channel would not be possible. Thank you. Okay, so let's get started. And so on today's episode, we're going to be looking at some of my favorite plugins, and we're going to decide which ones to use and which ones not to use. So why we're doing that is because in the next version of Openmediavault, not every plugin is going to be available, and what we should actually do is use the Docker. So here, let's take a look at that right now. So if you just Google why should you use or not use Docker and Openmediavault, this post will come up, and this one is by the OMB Extras maintainer. And so if we look at here, a lot of them are going to be maintained, but some of them aren't. And so things like Calibre, which I've done a video on, Cups, Duplicati, which also I've done. I've done those with Dockers. NGX, I've also done a video on that. OpenVPN, Plex Media Server, I've done a video on. Transmission, UR Backup, and WebDave. And so we don't want to pick a plugin that we install now and then when Openmediavault upgrades, it's not going to be there anymore. We should just use the Docker instead for that. So if we go over to Openmediavault, the first thing that you should do is to get the most functionality is install OMB Extras. And how you do that is you go to ombextras.org, go to the guide section, and then download the latest deb for your version of Openmediavault. So I have OMB4 at this time, so then I would download this. Another way to do it is from the command line right here, but Openmediavault doesn't have a command line built in the beginning. I usually add it later. Or you can use something like PuTTY to, if you have a monitor and keyboard attached to your Openmediavault, then you can use those directly to log into your server. Once you've downloaded an OMB Extras, what you do is you go to Plugins, and then you click Upload. You click Browse, and then you go to your Openmediavault, then you go to your download folder, click on Openmediavault Extras, click Open, and then OK, and that will install Openmediavault Extras. Once that's done, you'll have OMB Extras over here after your screen refreshes. Once you've installed the OMB Extras plugin, what you do is scroll all the way down to the bottom. You click on the plugin and then install that. Once you've installed that, then you go to OMB Extras, and for us, what we want to do, click on the Docker CE, and then you would click Edit, and then you would change it to green, and then save it. And then what I do always is update, and then once that's done updating, your plugin list should be updated. So let's look at a few of my favorite plugins. And so the first one is Shell in the Box. And so this is a plugin that's not going to be supported in the next version of Openmediavault. So what I would suggest doing is using PuTTY, which is an exterior program, or you can use or you can use Wedi, which is a Docker, but it's a terminal, or it's a shell in a Docker, and that's what I'll be using in the next version of Openmediavault. Next, if we go up to this box, we're going to type reset perms, and when that comes up, this window will come up. And so how to install that, you just click on it and then install. And where you find that is if you go to shared folders, click on that, and then you have a new tab here at the top, and that is the reset perms tab. Click on that. And so basically what you would do is you'd pick out your folder here. There's a down arrow on the right, and then pick which permissions you want to change, then reset, and then save. If we go back to plugins, we're going to type in flash memory. So what the flash memory plugin does, it moves the main files that your computer is going to, or your server is going to be accessing, into RAM. And so then it is not doing as much wear on your hard drive, your SD card, or your SSD. And so this is a great way of, again, reducing the amount of stress on those different drives. And even if I'm not using SD card or SSD, I always enable it because it works. Check mark the box and then click install, and yes. Once that's done, click close and reload. And now over here on the left, you can see we have the flash memory plugin. And so once you install the plugin, it's actually working. But if we look at the plugin, let's see what it says. So it doesn't really say anything that it's working or not. And then it gives all these extra notes down here that look like you should use them. But if you look closely, these notes are actually optional. And so I've done a video about the flash memory plugin, and so what I actually suggest is just leaving it as is and not doing the optional notes, because what can happen is you can actually make your system read only, and you can undo it, but it's a real pain. So I just suggest leaving it as is with the plugin, unless you're daring. So the next plugin we're going to look at is Docker. And so again, just click on that, install. Once that's done, there'll be a Docker tab under services. Just click on that, and you'll need to enable it the first time you run it. But then once you can do that, if we go back to why you should or should not use Dockers, you can see a lot of things that are currently plugins will be relegated to Dockers. So having Docker installed is essential. And Dockers are easy to install. Most of my tutorials are about using Dockers. So if you have any questions or you want a certain Docker covered, just leave it in the comments down below here. So if we go back to plugins, if we look under backup, you can see there's several here. The one I use the most is Duplicati, but I've also made a video showing how to use Duplicati with a Docker, which I actually prefer. If we go to the downloader sections, these are all going to disappear in the next version of Openmediavault, so I wouldn't suggest using these. And I've also made videos about using these with Dockers. There's our flash memory plugin, and if we look further under, the ones that most people will probably use are SnapRAID and the Union file system. And so you can think of these two as two peas in the pod because they work well together. And so basically SnapRAID is a backup, SnapRAID provides a parity backup for your system so that if one disk fails, you can put a new disk in and it will build that disk back up through using the parity drive. The Union file system basically merges all your different hard drives together so that when you add a file, it puts the file on the hard drive, usually, depending on how you set up, that has the least amount of data on it. So that way you won't fill up one drive and then the other drives aren't working. If we scroll down a little farther, there's ZFS, which is another favorite file system. And so I haven't experienced this or tried it myself, but some people find that they have a problem with using other things with ZFS like SnapRAID or the Union file system. But if you think about ZFS, it sort of has those two combined in it already. So I don't know why you would want to do that, but if you have a reason why you would want to do that, again, leave a comment down below because I'd like to hear about it. Then under monitoring, we have disk stats, which I don't have any really need for. It provides a little more information about your hard disk. So under multimedia, we have three different things here. First, two of those have to be related to Apple's products. So the ForkDAPDID, I don't know how you actually say that, is for iTunes compatibility. And the share port is to mimic an Airport Express. In between those, we have the mini DLNA server. And so this one is if you want to share things to a smart TV or something like that. You don't really need it if you're using something like Plex or the equivalent like MB or whatever else, because they provide their own mini MDLNA folder, you could say, that then smart TVs can access. And this one actually is also, I think, going to Docker too, so that plugin is going to disappear. Next, under network, we have some more interesting things. Most of these are staying. The ones that are not staying are basically database, web server, and pre-boot environment. So these are all easily available in Dockers. OpenVPN is going to Docker, so I would stick with that. Under sharing, both of these two will be disappearing. And then most of this section is staying. These are utilities. These are utilities that are very important to the operating of a server. And then finally, in the last section, we have Docker, which we have already installed, and VirtualBox. And so what I've found for VirtualBox is that once I learned how to use Dockers and started installing those, most of the things that I wanted to do with VirtualBox, I just started using with Dockers because so it used up less system resources. And so there's our overview of the plugins, including my most favorite plugins. So if you've lasted this far, they were Docker, reset permissions, shell in the box, which is going to be gone, and so you should use either PuTTY or Weddy, which is the Docker version of PuTTY, and then the flash memory plugin. And if you have those installed, you'll be ready to go. So that's it for today. Take care and have a nice day. Bye-bye.